Hello everybody, this is Sylvain Rochon, the Peaceful Revolutionary. Nice to see you again. I'm pre-recording this one. Like I mentioned in my last video, I'm going on a holiday for the next couple of weeks from the 15th to the 29th. I'm not going very far, but I'll have company, and it's going to be difficult to make videos moving around and doing all sorts of stuff. So I decided to record this one for this next weekend, so you won't be missing out on anything, and I'm going to have something interesting on the channel. So since I'm pre-recording it, and I just recorded a video a couple of days ago, I decided to do something, I guess, a little bit more fun to me. I don't know if it's fun for you, but hopefully it's going to be interesting for you guys as well. And it's something that's been on my list for a while. It's an interesting. It comes from an interesting article I read. The name of the article is down below. Of course, it's called "What if the aliens we are looking for are AI, artificial intelligence?" And I'm writing currently a book about technology in the future. It kind of falls in line with that, as well as my interest in life and the cosmos and all this stuff. And it's a very interesting question, and I think we want to talk about it now because it kind of breaks your brain in some way if you haven't been exposed to these kinds of ideas before. Now, just to go back in history, I don't know, it's like middle of the 20th century. I'm looking for the date here. Is there a date? Maybe there's no date. I would have to research it. But anyway, in the middle of the 20th century, I would assume probably in the 60s, just as a wild guess. The exact date is not that important. We being the U.S., started this SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, right? Essentially, it's in California, a bunch of radio telescopes that are broadcasting. They're shooting off radio waves, essentially, and not broadcasting. Sorry, they're trying to capture radio waves from elsewhere, and trying to focus areas of the sky that are more likely to have life. Like back in the 60s and 70s and even 80s. Shit, I mean, even beyond in the 90s, we had absolutely no idea where to point the thing, so we just basically pointed at different stars and tried our best to capture something. And you know, radio waves are electromagnetic waves, so they travel at the speed of light, which is really, really fast, at 300,000 kilometers a second. That's real fast. But still, just to get from the closest star, Alpha Centauri, to the Earth, it would take over 4 years for a radio wave to get here. Now, let's assume for a minute, because we already looked at Alpha Centauri for quite a while, there are no radio waves coming from there. Does that mean there's no life there? And that's a whole bunch of questions, because we're just trying to capture radio waves. And we're assuming, at least since the 60s, that alien civilization somewhere would be broadcasting radio waves. Or they would be perhaps trying to broadcast out in a certain intentional way and whatnot. We've had a couple of interesting signals, but they were debunked. Like they ended up being like a signal reflected off of satellite in low orbit and things like that. So it's been an interesting ride, but for a couple of instances that ended up being nothing significant. But all the rest of the time, it's been just waiting in silence. More recently, we thought we were a little bit more advantaged because we've been identifying since maybe the year 2000, maybe a little bit before, some possible planets around some solar system, around some stars that had a liquid ocean of water. So, you know, SETI obviously took that data and started pointing radio telescopes in the directions of those particular stars, thinking, well, if life has evolved, like taking after the theory of evolution, then maybe on those planets similar to ours. Now, as we progress, as always, we develop our knowledge and our intelligence and our understanding of the universe, and we're heading towards something kind of interesting, which Ray Kurzweil, the futurologist, describes as the singularity. I've talked about this before. It's around 2029, based on Moore's law's advancements in computing, and which means computers will have as many computations per second as a human brain. And then since the computing power doubles every year and a half, according to Moore's law, a year and a half later, then we'd have, like, one computer would be like 2 brains, and another year and a half it would be like 4 brains. And if you know the geometric progression, it doesn't take a long time till you have one computer that has as much computations a second as the whole of humanity. It would take, I'm doing a quick calculation, a little bit over 50 more years actually to get there, if I'm correct, where you'd have like more computation than the whole of humanity. Another 1.5 years, it's double that, and so on. It goes pretty quickly. The bottom line is, and I've talked about this before, I just want to reiterate, very, very soon, 2029 is essentially 10 years from now, a little bit more than 10 years, 12, right? Between now and then, we'll start having very, very smart AI, artificial intelligence, that can do a lot of stuff for us. And in some ways, will surpass us. In other ways, it won't yet. Around 2029, it's going to be, we're going to be better at certain things, more the creative aspects and emotion, where there's involvement in emotions and passion, and extremely complex tasks that require both motricity as well as intellect, which are going to be these are fairly rare. And then, past that, like basically AI and robotics and advancements will be more sophisticated than at doing pretty much anything as any humans, and they'll be the ones that will be generating the new generations of AI and robotics, and kind of not taking over. Let's not be dramatic, but they'll be kind of improving upon themselves, and hopefully humanity will be able to benefit from that, and we'll be able to kind of chill and relax and do whatever we want. And there's going to be all these automated systems that will be taking care of everything, and even advancing our knowledge in science, we'll just be able to passively, take in the knowledge. Now, there's another path, another part of it. Like, since there's all these advancements, we also are able to advance ourselves, as in improving our own biology and enhancing it. We're going back into the discussions of eugenics, for example. But in addition to that, we can also potentially decide, well, this human shell is not sufficient enough for or what we want to do as people, as individuals. We want to enhance ourselves in a more profound way. Instead of using cybernetics and devices like smartphones, like super AI assistants and things like that, maybe we'll be uploading our consciousnesses into this technology that is auto-enhancing itself, which would allow us as individuals to progress way beyond whatever we are right now, and way faster than anything else we could produce. That is fairly reasonable. That is all going to be possible, assuming you don't believe in things that parts of us cannot be fathomed or reorganized in different ways. Like, some people believe in the soul, for example, and to them, typically, the soul is not something that can be manipulated, copied, or transferred. It's something that is kind of living inside you, that is unfathomable and kind of mystical in some ways, and it's, all that stuff. So yeah, if you believe in that, maybe the parts of you can't transcend the human body. It has to kind of be contained in it somehow, or not. I don't know. it's a belief system, right? If you think rationally, like only in science, and believe that this is a body and it's all a mechanism, then for sure you can transfer it at some point in time thanks to science and technology and ability. Now, why I get into that, like talking about whether or not they're, they're AI aliens, because that's a topic that I described. I'm getting to it. The point is, we started playing around SETI in the 60s, and we only were playing around radio signals since the beginning of that century. So until now, and transcendence into possible AI-hood, if you will, or transfer into outside of a human body, there's maybe a span of about 200 years, according to our humanity. So that's about 200 years. And that, like, in cosmological terms, that's a very small amount of time between emitting and transmitting of radio signals and ability to kind of receive and capture it, and us shedding our human form. So if we assume for a moment that other humanities or other intelligent beings out there in the universe, in the galaxy and beyond, let's just take this galaxy for example, are in existence, they exist, I do believe that multiple do, in their span of intelligence, of emergence of intelligence up until wherever they are now, assuming the universe is super old or, according to my view, infinite, what is the likelihood that within that 200-year span of ours, there's another one in the galaxy that is also within that 200-year span, where they are playing with radio waves, but also they would be interested in receiving it. As, think about it. If you are transcended into technologies that are beyond the human form, they don't even look like us. They're not even necessarily on a planet somewhere. Because if you don't have a body to feed yourself, like when you need sustenance, you can live inside, as long as you have energy, you can have self-sustaining systems that are like in space, in deep space, near stars, in orbits, pretty much anywhere in the universe. So we're not pointing perhaps not the satellites, the dishes of the SETI dishes in the right locations necessarily. If you're within that 200-year time span, well, there's a fair, and we're kind of matching with another civilization as far as advancements. Well, there's a likelihood that that we can communicate at the distance, but it takes so many years. It could take 200 years before you get there, and before the radio waves kind of sink in, and I mean, the chances of all this stuff kind of happening at the same time with the same time span is really small. And let's assume that there's no transcendence, and you just advance in technologies. I mean, you may not even be using radio waves anymore, or even listening to them anymore. So that's the other theory. So the SETI program is really, I mean, it's really a long shot in the first place, and we don't know how many people are out there, whether it's intelligent or not, whether there's life or not. We can't really get scientific confirmation of it. So it's all really assumptions, and we'd be really, really lucky with the means that we're trying to identify if there's AI out there, if we actually do. Now, let's imagine that the aliens that are out there are beyond that 200-year time span of their history, which is highly likely. On the bottom end, they're not interested. Well, they're not interested. They would be interested, but they would be freaked out. But they can't even capture whatever communication types we would send their way anyway. They're too primitive. If it's beyond that 200 years, it's highly likely, hypothetically, that they are actually artificial intelligence. They're not artificial in that sense. They are real intelligences, but they're transcended into artificial means of supporting that intelligence, right? And so that they can expand infinitely using their own AI, created AI support systems that kind of iterate and make them better all the time. Again, every 18 months or so, they can double their capacity, and so on and so forth. I mean, these civilizations, if they exist in that form, I mean, would they be even interested remotely in the planet Earth at all? They're not interested in any one of our resources, that's for sure. I've covered that in the previous, even if they were biological, they wouldn't be interested. There's so many resources around. But they wouldn't be even interested in planets. Planets are not a source of energy. They are a source of matter, but at that level, all you really need is hydrogen. And you have hydrogen from any star. And you can get any kind of matter from any planet. So, Earth, I mean, as far as the non-intelligent bits, like the matter itself, completely not interested. Are they interested in the intelligent life on Earth? That depends. What kind of level of interest? Are they curious? Are they laughing at us? Are they concerned? Are they? Is that like a reality show for them? Right? They're kind of watching humanity and say like, oh, freaking crazy shit going on here. Maybe they're beyond that kind of entertainment. They've moved on to way different ways to entertain themselves, given the fact that they're in a completely different form, right? Heck, I mean, they have the ability to create worlds of wonder within themselves. They create virtual worlds constantly. They don't even live necessarily in the real world, as in like a real material world. They can manipulate matter and light, and they live within it at the same time. So they can do anything they like. The way they perceive the world, if they were AI, would be based on whatever sensors they have kept. Whether they want to keep in other senses that we're not even thinking about. I mean, it's crazy to think they would be even interested in us, except for leisure, or in the chance that I do believe that, because I mentioned this before, I believe that, way back when we were created scientifically by people from elsewhere that were about the same level of technology as we are today, manipulating genetics and DNA and doing that on another planet that was fairly nearby to them, and bringing that up. So if those people that were there like thousands of years ago and creating humans and stuff like that, if they're still around, and I believe they are, I mean, they'd be interested because we're their progeny in a sense, right? We're kind of their creation, so they want to kind of keep a tabs on what's going on. Now they would be far beyond that 200-year gap. You can imagine that. Like even when they came and created stuff here, assuming you adopt this theory, they were already beyond the 200 years, or close to being that, most likely. So. It's really interesting to think of us as not the center of the universe. Like pretty much every science fiction novel or movie that talks about aliens is humans or the planet itself is somehow unique or special, and we become the center of attention of this alien race that comes in and typically wants to replace us, take our planet, enslave us, or do something with us. But where realistically we are in no way interesting to any civilization that is able to go beyond their own solar system technologically. Civilizations that are not there, like we are still, and we were even worse in the past, they are the dangerous ones. But they can't cross the gap. They can't come to us. They would be the ones if by magic they would be brought here with their military, and they would be, I don't know, 1970s humans-ish, and let's say they're more advanced. Let's give them 2040, okay, but still primitive mind and kind of more like looking at resources and shit like that. And they would come here to have better technology than we do. okay, well, maybe they would say, well, they have lesser technology. Let's just take it somehow, make a deal, and we kind of surreptitiously, we're going to take their resources and energy because we just can. Because they're primitive still, maybe they'd actually attempt to do that, and probably succeed because they're way more advanced in years. But they're not able to cross the distance between stars. Not yet, because just like we're not able to do that yet. We're still far from that still. But so the point is, out there, extraterrestrial life, they may not be what we think they are, and we're quite safe on the planet from outside influences that are intelligent, that are able to cross the distance between the stars and visit us. And the only civilizations that may likely be interested in us are the people that may have created us in the first place, kind of planted seeds, and so to speak, or just for entertainment and just passive interest. There's no other reason for it. So that's an interesting thought. I mean, I think it's interesting. And I'd like to start a discussion on this because we are heading in that direction, and in only like 10, 12 years of singularity, might as well illuminate ourselves on those topics and take advantage of these communication mediums we have, limited as they may be, to have a chat about it and kind of spread the word, because people shouldn't be afraid of talking about this and to imagining that there is other life out there, but just different than what we see in the movies. We project in the movies what we think aliens would look like based on what we know, and what we know today, this year. We should be thinking about aliens in a different way. That's what I'm saying. All right, so that's going to be it for now. Hopefully, this is going to trigger some thoughts in you, and hopefully a little bit of discussion as well. And in the meantime, I will be skipping next week. I won't have time for another video. I seriously doubt it before my holiday time. So I will see you guys in 2 weekends for another video installment, and I do have something pretty interesting. I think I'm going to be going back to an energy video. Some really neat stuff have come up. So I'll do a little synopsis and tell you all about it in 2 weeks' time. Ciao for now. Have a nice one.